is a beautifully colored piece of Peridot from Pakistan. There are none of those lily pad looking inclusions inside this piece of Peridot. Under magnification, I can see some internal issues with this gemstone, but at least not the lily pad inclusions where there are problems to polish those things out. And again, the color of this rough is awesome. So let's see how much it weighs in at. .337 carats. Okay, this is Refractol, which has the about the same refractive index as quartz. Not the same as Peridot, but it should be close enough to allow us to look into the stone. It'll kind of mask the exterior of the stone and let us look a little bit inside. So let's take a look here. Of course, there's surface junk on the stone, but inside, let me look. Large clean parts and some included parts of this gemstone. There's one fracture in the stone right here. It doesn't go all the way through, but it does go very deep. And I will use my trim saw and cut this piece of rough into two pieces and cut right along this fracture. There are a lot of other fractures, issues, mostly along the right side of this gemstone. So I don't think I'll get an internally flawless gemstone, but I believe I can get two eye-clean gemstones, meaning that you're not going to see the inclusions with the naked eye, but most likely with magnification you can see them. But what you will see is that awesome color. With my trim saw, I cut my rough into two stones along that big internal fracture. I'll be able to cut a rectangle or emerald-shaped gemstone with the first piece, and with the second piece of Peridot, I should be able to cut something like maybe a 7 to 8 millimeter round gemstone. Both of the final gemstones should be pretty clean internally, not flawless, but the color will make up for that, any minor internal issues. But we'll have to see after I cut them. Okay, for our design, we want the stone to go into our spindle this way, so that we want the 48 and 96 at the top and the bottom, and the 24 tooth and the 72 tooth, so that the stone's this way. So we want it that way in our machine, so that we'll get the most yield. So again, we want it this way on our stone, so that the long ways is this way and the short side's this way, and the 96 or the 48 is at the top and the bottom. The larger piece of rough that I trimmed is shaped well for a rectangle cut, so I'll use this design, which is a traditional emerald shaped design. Using Gem Cut Studios or GCS software, I have modified the design slightly to make it as bright as possible for Peridot. The smaller piece of Peridot, which I cut with my trim saw, had a lot of fractures near the surface, so I used my 600 grit lap, and by hand I just cleaned up a bit and preformed this piece of rough a bit. And I believe it's going to cut a nice round gemstone. So my favorite round design is a Portuguese cut. So I'll use this design by the late Jeff Graham. I have cut this design before, so I won't go into detail on the cutting instructions. I will say that Jeff put this design and about 24 of his most popular other designs into his now gone website for all cutters to try, and I show you in a previous video how to go back in time on the internet and to get to Jeff's old website, where you can download this design as well as a number of others, as well as a lot of articles written by Jeff on gem cutting. You can go to this video with the link if you're interested. Okay, I've preformed our piece of Peridot, and I've only used my 600 grit topper because it cuts through Peridot pretty easily, so I didn't need anything rougher. And I've gotten rid of all of the inclusions that I see in this stone, and it had a lot, and it had a lot of what's called surface chatter, but it went a little bit below the surface, so there's still a few issues to work through, but that they won't be a problem. There's a little bit here that I have to clean up. There's here, but when I cut the corners, that'll clean up. Down here won't bother me because our top piece will be below that. This will clean up with the corner, except maybe here I probably need to bring the pavilion down a little bit. Every little bit I bring the pavilion down brings this in, so that the corner eventually will take care of that, the corner cuts. So it's looking pretty good. Fortunately, there's no internal lily pad inclusions, which are typical of Peridot and which are very, very difficult to cut and polish. So I think we'll end up with a nice stone, but a lot smaller than we had started out with. I've pre-polished our Peridot with 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap, and got rid of most of the internal issues. There's still a few minor internal inclusions and a fracture, but it's a much better stone than what I thought I was going to have. So now I'm going to go to polish, and for polish I was going to use my aluminum oxide bat stick on a tin lap. That usually works very well for Peridot, but I think I'm going to try my zirconium oxide bat stick. So these are the bat sticks from Gear Loose. They kind of look like crayons, and this one's hardly used at all. So I'm going to test out the zirconium oxide, and this is my aluminum oxide bat stick. You can see that I've used it up quite a bit, so I'm going to try zirconium oxide. Okay, on the pavilion of our Peridot, I started polishing it with zirconium oxide on my tin lap. And it was going a little slower than I expected. I'd get a little scratch, and then I'd have to go back and polish that out, and then another scratch would come up and I'd polish that out. So I switched to my aluminum oxide on the tin lap, and that polished it right up. So don't know if it's may just be this one stone, but in this case aluminum oxide on a tin lap works better than zirconium oxide on a tin lap, but I'll continue to test it out. Now I'll transfer our stone so I can cut the upper half. Okay, I went over the upper half of our Peridot with my 600 grit topper. That's the first lap that I used on it because it's I don't need to move a whole bunch of material, and this Peridot cuts pretty easily. So now I'm going to go over the crown, the upper half, with my 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap, and then I believe we'll be ready to go to polish. I finished polishing the upper half of our Peridot with a tin lap with aluminum oxide bat stick from Gear Loose. So it polished right up, and the color is looking really nice in this stone. So now I still have to cut the table, so I'll set up my stone to cut and polish the table. Then we'll be done with our Peridot. And the table polished right up with my tin lap and aluminum oxide, and before that I just used my 12M lap to pre-polish it. That's the only other lap I used, which is about a 1500 grit lap. So now I'll soak our stone in acetone, weigh it, measure it, and send it off to BOPIE. Okay, I went around our stone with the 600 grit topper to preform it. Now I'm using a 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap. That's this row right here. And then I'll go to polish, probably with my tin lap and aluminum oxide. I've had good luck with Peridot with that combination, tin lap and aluminum oxide bat stick. So for right now, I'll continue working on this stone with my 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap. I finished polishing the bottom half, the pavilion of our kind of leftover trim piece off of our bigger piece of Peridot. So I'll transfer this this stone using my transfer fixture and cut the upper half, or the crown. Okay, I've got gone over the top part, the crown of our Peridot with my 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap. I have just enough space to cut the table, so now I'm going to go ahead and polish the upper half with my tin lap with aluminum oxide. And I'm kind of glad I trimmed this piece with my trim saw rather than grinding it to Peridot dust. It turned out to be a very nice color of Peridot. I like it. So let me go ahead and go to polish. Finished polishing the upper half of our Peridot. It polished up with no problems at all with my tin lap and aluminum oxide bat stick. So now I'll set up the stone to cut and polish the table, and we'll be finished with this gemstone. Okay, to polish the table, it pre-polished right up. I started with my 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap because I didn't have very far to go, and then I went to my tin lap with cerium oxide or aluminum oxide, and it polished right up. So now I'll soak the stone in acetone, weigh it, measure it, and it'll be ready for me to send off to BOPIE. I recently found a very nicely colored piece of fairly large Peridot, which was offered to me at a very good price, at least for Peridot. The piece was not internally clean, and I normally pass when it's not internally clean, but I felt that I could work around most of the internal issues and end up with a nice stone. And due to one large internal fracture, I ended up cutting the rough into two pieces and cut two nice gemstones. One rectangle shaped and the other into a round shape. I tested out using zirconium oxide on a tin lap to polish Peridot. I found that for me, aluminum oxide on a tin lap works better than on Peridot than zirconium oxide, but I'll keep testing. That was just one try. Neither of the two gemstones designs that I cut are difficult, and I would recommend you give them a try. And if you do, drop me a note on Facebook and let me know how they turned out. Photos are always welcomed. And as always, happy fasting, everyone.